What's up everybody, D-Man back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today we're going to be reviewing Skull Island Season 1 Episode 6, Terms of Endearment. Alright, yes, Terms of Endearment, Episode 6. I got some mixed thoughts on this one, but I had a good time with it. Now, I did see some people wondering, why am I reviewing these episode by episode instead of just a whole season review? So many reasons, but to run through the big ones, number one, I'm having way more fun with this show than most people. Most people binged the show in one day, reviewed it, and posted maybe like a breakdown or a discussion or something, and then it was done, it's over, it's gone. I think that's a really sad way to enjoy content. I mean, sometimes it's okay to binge stuff, but as far as being somebody who engages with the content, I think it's really sad to just have it be done and over with really quickly. I would rather spend some time with the thing and enjoy it bit by bit as it was meant to be. Also, the conversation on this show has died very fast. Not a lot of people are still talking about it as I knew would happen, and I am in many ways, I'm trying to keep the conversation alive by doing this episode by episode. Also, it's just more satisfying for me to be able to get my thoughts on it as I go through it. That way it's kind of an archive of what I thought about the show as I watched the show. And then another major reason is, as somebody who wants to produce films and content themselves someday, I would really hope that people would take the time to appreciate my content bit by bit as they go, rather than just binge it, get it over with, and never talk about it again. I would rather people engage with episode to episode because a lot of work goes into each episode, so they deserve their own time of day to be spoken about. And so that's what I want to do here, is to respect the work that was put into these episodes by talking about how I feel about them. Now, that doesn't mean I'm always going to say nice things about them, but that does mean that I'm going to be engaging with the content that effort was put into. Really quickly, I've noticed a really weird trend within this fandom where people title their videos about this show really negative things like, we need to talk about the Skull Island anime, or my honest opinions on the Skull Island anime, or was the Skull Island anime even worth it? I'm cutting in on this video just to explain my point more because I think I'm going to upset people with that statement. From my perspective, it's like, yeah, you're reviewing the show. I sure hope you're giving your honest opinion. That's kind of the point of a review. You're here to talk about it. That's the point, obviously. I think those titles are intentionally negative to try and get people roused up to click on them more because hate sells. So I don't know what's up with that trend. I would rather just review it episode by episode, engage with the content appropriately, and then when I'm done with this, I can review the show. It's also important because it shows, does this show only work as a binge, or does it work episode to episode, which is more important than just being able to binge a show. It's important for each episode to have a story and stand alone on its own. So that's all of the many reasons. One last thing is, I forgot to mention in the last video that there were big skullcrawler carvings all over Kong's temple. There was some showing Kong fighting them. They were coming up from the ground. There was some showing him go to war with them. I just thought it was a neat detail to add these skullcrawler things in the background. They do address it at one point in the episode, but the animation is a lot of times really hard to tell what I'm looking at. Like, it was hard to tell that they were skullcrawlers. I had to really spend some time trying to look at those images to figure out what they were. And then sometimes, like, when they're looking down that big pit and they're like, oh my gosh, how'd we get way up here on this cliff? It's oftentimes hard to tell what they're even looking at because it was so covered in fog, so sometimes the animation shoots itself in the foot. Again, even though I do like the animation generally, I'm still not really sold on the art style because it does have issues like this. So I just wanted to mention all of that right up at the top. But yes, I really enjoyed episode 6. I thought it was a good time, although I actually didn't like any of the characters this episode. Every person annoyed me in this episode. Going through it, spoiler warning for episode 6 of Skull Island. Again, not a plot by plot, just my thoughts as I went through the episode. I really loved the flashback scene at the start of this episode. Young Annie's design was great, really hooked you on the emotion of that character. It was a really emotional backstory overall as well. These scenes were handled with proper care and dedication. The story came first, I really appreciated that. Really good vocal performances and shot choices, and it was a really well done backstory. I thought overall it was really great. This also does confirm that Dog can be killed by a single rifle, meaning Dog is not as powerful as he has been made out to be earlier in this show. I don't know how the current Dog could survive machine gun fire when the previous Dog died to what just looks like a regular hunting rifle, but that appears to be the case. How do these handcuffs even work? I mean, how did these even hold Annie down? They make no sense. I mean, the handcuff is tied to a rope which is staked into the ground. Why wouldn't they just handcuff her to the stake? She can remove the stake either way, so it's not holding her down. So what is up with that? It was a really weird way to handcuff her. It's not important to the plot, but I just found it strange. We finally have a name for this soldier. His name is Sam, and I really like Sam. He's actually one of my favorite characters in this show. I'm glad Annie finally showed even the slightest bit of care for Mike, although that's very short-lived in this episode, and I'm surprised that she was the first to figure out that the injury on his chest came from the time he was zapped by the squid. I don't know why Mike didn't just say, hey guys, I got electrocuted by that squid and also it poisoned me. I'm surprised Annie was the first to connect those dots. I agree with Sam's theory that that squid thing is just a dick. I think that's a really funny theory that he has on it. The humor is very in line with some of the stuff we've seen in the MonsterVerse so far, so I appreciated it. Annie is still a bad friend in this episode. Annie takes a lot of L's in this episode. I actually dislike her following this episode. I was on shaky ground with her up to this point, and this episode really sold me on the Annie L train. I'm not big on her here. Yeah, she's a really bad friend. It seems the only thing she truly cares about is Dog, and maybe Charlie, maybe because she has a crush on him. She just straight up gives up on Mike really quickly. Really rude. And she also gives up on Charlie really quickly too. Bad friend. I don't know why Dog and Charlie are no longer getting along after their incredible bond in the last episode. I mean, we just spent one whole episode building the relationship between these two, only for it to suddenly fall apart really quickly. I also don't know how they made it off that cliff they were stuck on in the last episode. I mean, it made it seem like they were stuck and they couldn't get across that bridge. Maybe they just did walk across the bridge and that's as simple as it is. Did it hold them up? I'm not sure if it could support their weight, but they must have gotten off of it somehow because the show just kind of moves on as if that never occurred. Good for Charlie finally having the courage to stand up to and even fight Dog. I mean, Dog kind of sucks in this episode. I don't know why he's being so rude to Charlie all of a sudden. They were just getting along, but I'm glad Charlie finally has the confidence to stand up for himself. And then this episode really sold me on Irene. I'm fully on board with Irene, and I am no longer on the Annie team. Annie sucks. She really sucks in this episode. She's the worst. Again, the emotion in these flashbacks are amazing. I really like them. They were very well done, and it's got this great first meeting between Annie and Dog. I really like the way those two met, and I really like the way they interact. I also appreciated how Dog's dad doesn't look the exact same as him. They have different color palettes, so there's a difference in these designs. They're not just a copy paste. How did that boat even flip over like that in the first place? What a weird way to have the boat crashed on the island. Young Annie and Dog have actually, in my opinion, a much better and more interesting bond and dynamic and characterization than their older selves. I thought that the younger version of these characters were far more engaging than anything the older versions have done. I would think that this Dog would be a much better and more likable sidekick than the one we have in this show, although he's not more capable, and I thought that the young Annie was way more likable. And I'm gonna guess based on these flashbacks that Annie is around somewhere between 6 and 7 years old. That's kind of the impression I got, which means she should be a nicer person. She probably was raised to be better. One little detail I noticed that was an animation mistake was that Annie's jacket, the sleeves on them, changes length depending on the shot. Sometimes they're really long and her arms don't even stick out of them, as it should be, and sometimes she can fully just wear them normally. I'm surprised that cold hot dog didn't kill her. That's disgusting, Annie. Cook it. You're old enough to know that you should heat that thing up. Gross. I don't know how Charlie is still hung up on college and girls at this point. I was okay with it when he was bickering with Mike because it was someone for him to be a sounding board to bounce off of, but at this point, Charlie, focus. You've got way bigger things to worry about. Although it is fun to hear him refer to Skull Island as Monster Island again during his little rant, I'm just surprised that he's still hung up on that. The purple grass in the background is a really beautiful touch. It was a really nice little thing that they added. Annie wanting to kill things is still cringe. Oh my god, Annie, you suck in this episode. Get over yourself. You're weird. You're a weirdo. I appreciate the aloe turtle was brought back into play and is actually relevant to the plot, but it would have been more interesting to see it show up and then collect the aloe off of it rather than to just mention it. But I do like that it has relevance to this story. I also think it's an interesting way to heal Mike, and it's pretty much along the lines of what I thought they would do in this episode. I really thought they would heal him in some way just like that, so I'm glad to see that they did that. Sam's a real one. I mean, we love Sam. He's such a great and supportive friend. I really appreciate him in this show. I think he's a great presence. I really like the scene where Irene and Annie finally hash it out and argue. I also like the way that it pays back to episode 1 when Charlie and Cap go at it. I thought it was a good way to pay off that dynamic and show that Cap has learned from that and now it's time for Irene to learn from that. Some of the dialogue in this scene was a little strange. Like, I don't really know why Irene had to mention that she's super rich. It felt like very forced exposition. That part was a little clunky to me. And oh my god, Annie sure does suck. Wow, this flashback scene ruined her for me. This is the scene that broke this character for me. She can be cringe all she wants. She can be threatening all she wants, but this flashback scene right here is crazy how things actually went down on that beach. I really would have thought, and I think they should have, had the soldiers open fire first on Dog, but oh my god, Annie and Dog are just the worst, completely ambushing Irene's crew and killing them. They were the attackers. Irene's crew has to be revealed to be bad people later in this show to justify this scene, because at the moment, Dog and Annie are murdering murderers of innocent people who did not deserve it. It's also weird to me. Annie, you're stranded on an island and you finally see people and your first thought is to kill them all? You were a human living in civilization. You should know that people are not always bad, and you should have been excited to see them, maybe even wanting to get rescued. I mean, she says in this episode she did not want to be found or rescued, but why? Why? You were stuck on a monster island. That makes no sense. It would feel more likely that she would want to be rescued and want Dog to be taken with her rather than her to just attack these people and kill these random humans who she has never met before. Annie, you were not stranded for long enough to justify this. If you had been lost there as a baby, then maybe I could understand. But you weren't. You were like 7 years old. Oh my god, you're a bad person. You're the bad person, not Irene. Don't call her out. So far, you have just recontextualized this entire show to make it that she has done nothing wrong, and I'm sure she will be revealed to be a bad guy. I just feel it. I feel like this crew is going to be bad people. They're going to be up to no good. I mean, why are they collecting samples? But at the moment, you've just cleared her name, made her innocent. Annie, you suck. You're the worst. I mean, there is some fishy stuff going on because Irene in a previous episode said that she was hired to bring them back to the United States government, right? That's what they said earlier. Or somebody said that. Maybe Mustache said it. So what is the real truth going on here? I don't know. But at the moment, Annie, you're the worst. Even if they do turn out to be bad people, you shouldn't have attacked them first. You're still bad. Great monster tree reveal. I mean, that was classic Skull Island right there. It was so awesome. I wish those things posed a bit more of a threat. Those little gremlins, they were so cool. Such a cool design, such cool concepts. I just wish they were a bit more threatening and a bit more imposing. I wish they got some kills in or something in this episode, and I wish Dog and Charlie were not able to fight them off so easily. It's also weird because I looked it up and they're called like Night Boys. Where does that name come from? They were never referred to as Night Boys in this episode. What a weird name for them. But they're great. I really loved them. I hope we see more of them in the Monsterverse moving forward because I thought they were awesome. They also could have been, if they wanted to keep up with the Skull Island lore, they could have replaced those guys with Death Jackals. That would have been a nice deep cut reference for us fans, but I'll take what I can get. I'd like to see a Death Jackal fight a Night Boy. That'd be a cool fight. So Dog just abandons Charlie straight up? Like, what happened to their friendship from the last episode? Huge dog yell right there. Even if it does wind up saving Annie in the long run, Charlie might have died right then, Dog. What the hell? Annie should have really done worse in her fight. Again, she's handcuffed. I don't really buy the fact that she's such a good fighter with handcuffs on. I mean, I know all she does is hop on two monsters, but it still felt weird to me. I'm also surprised that her handcuff chains didn't get broken by the monster's teeth. You'd think it would have. I mean, the thing seemed pretty powerful. If this show was Kong Skull Island the movie, Cap would have died right before he hugged Charlie. I mean, I felt it in my bones that Cap was gonna get eaten by one of those night crawlers right before he hugged Charlie, and then he just didn't, which made me go, oh yeah, the show's still for a bit younger of an audience than the movie Kong Skull Island, which is a bit more cynical. But I like that Charlie and Cap are finally reunited. That's good stuff. I'm glad Irene finally holds her men off from shooting Dog, and I'm glad that Annie decides to save her and stick around with them, but damn, Annie, what a cold-hearted bastard you are. Not caring about Mike, just being like, Mike's gonna die, by the way. And then also being so petty, demanding Irene to apologize for defending herself against you and your monstrous dog. I'm on Irene's team. You're the worst. You tried to murder innocent people, and you did murder some. Again, even if they're bad people, she didn't know that. What? Why are you making her apologize? I get it. She grew up on a monster island. She doesn't really understand human concepts. She's so far removed. She's desensitized, and I get it. I get that she's immature and basically has the mental capacity of a 7-year-old. I get it, but oh my god, you're still a bad person. Leave her on the island, guys. It was also interesting to find out the reveal that Irene did not hire the original ship to look for Annie. They just stumbled upon her. I love the way they draw the night sky in this show. I like the way that they just stick the actual Milky Way system back there visible in the background, but I really do miss the aurora that should be taking over the night skies of Skull Island. I mean, I know it doesn't happen all the time, but I'd like at least one night of that in this show. I'm actually shocked that Squid can reach Mr. America all the way from in the water when they're up on that hill. That seems like a crazy arm span that thing has. It's a little wild to me how far that thing can stretch at times. I think at times they push the Squid Kraken a little too far and make him a little unbelievable for me. But I do like the ending when Charlie decides that the plan is to weaponize Kong. It had good music and it's a nice monsterish setup. It's a very let them fight moment. I like it. Alright, that's my thoughts on that one. Overall, I really liked the episode. I thought it had a great plot. I loved the reveals this episode, but I felt that the characters were off. They were not on the mark in this episode. At times, Irene was a bit annoying. At times, even Cap was a little strange. Mike was off in this episode. I mean, he's mostly not in it. Charlie and Dog are back having their weird beef again, and Annie took so many L's this episode that it was hard to get over it. But overall, I thought it was a good one. I think it ramps up towards this finale very well, and I'm very excited to see these final 2 episodes. Alright, that's gonna be this one. I want to give a huge huge thank you to all my patrons over on Patreon. Thank you very much, guys. If you want to support the Patreon, you can use the link in the description below, where you can get early access to content, access to the Discord community, and more. And it really does go a long way towards supporting this channel and making sure I can keep making videos like this for you guys. All right, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you guys next time for the next one. D-Man out.